Hello there, and welcome back to another Space Marine VOD review. This time we are looking at tactical once again. Seems that the last cannon footage that we reviewed yesterday was just a small break, but back to the grind it is. And this time the player we're looking at is Talonmaster Zso of the Night Lords, aka Bunker. I'm not sure which name he prefers. But he is using actually a very weird and wacky loadout. If we run the video, you will see exactly what I mean, because he is running with Plasma Gun, Vengeance Launcher, and with that he is running a Teleport Homer. Now I'm just going to say it right now, I don't like this loadout. I don't like it at all. I don't think it's good in many ways. I mean, just to explain what he's trying to do with this, you will see it on occasion in this particular match, but the theory behind it is that the Plasma Gun fires the charge shot, then he fast swaps to the Vengeance Launcher and finishes the target. Assuming it's a tactical, that will do enough damage to kill. I think it probably will against an assault as well. But fundamentally, I'm going to just straight out of the gates, let's have a look at how this combination will handle. So, the idea is fire the charge shot, finish with the Vengeance Launcher, but there's just so many troubles with that particular style. The main thing being that the follow-up is projectile and the opener is projectile. Now, why is that bad? Now, the whole point of the Plasma Gun is essentially as an ambush weapon. That's how you use the Plasma Gun. You lurk around a corner, you step out, and then you finish the target. Now, the trouble is that with any loadout, you will have a more efficient finishing weapon in the form of the pistol. And that is just straight up better at it, if you ask me, because the Plasma Gun does 150 armor damage, and then 2 shots from the bolt pistol will finish a target like a tactical, which is essentially what this whole point of the loadout is trying to do. So now I've explained how it's supposed to work, I suppose let's have a look at how it does work in practice. Now, it's also worth noting that there are some strong opponents on the other team, including a couple of Grey Knights, so this is by no means an easy game, but let's see how it goes. So moving up to straight up to this point, which is C, I like this idea. This is the right play if you ask me. You can leave your teammates to take A while you get yourself on this next point along. Moving off underneath, again, I don't mind this. This is actually a pretty good position to hold, but it doesn't look like you're going to stick around there, and instead you're going to try and cross the bridge towards D. Okay, so we've got a target along there. Let's see how the combo works out. Switching, slow swap there, not the end of the world. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference. Okay, and your Plasma Cannon wipes them out. Last cannon behind. Okay, you reacted to that. That's good. There's a melter. Okay, good. You're not pushing in there, or are you? Oh, you're pushing in there. Okay, right. Now, another reason why I don't like this loadout is because it doesn't have a melter gun. Now, there are so many reasons why a tactical needs a melter gun, and as they come up in this video, I will explain them. But this is the first that we see. In this scenario here, you've seen there's an enemy melter gun here, and that means that this entire area here is currently out of bounds with your current loadout. You have the option of spamming the corner with Vengeance Launcher, maybe landing shots here. If you really want, you can fire a charge shot from the Plasma Gun, but these aren't great options. If the target has a brain, they will just lurk somewhere back here behind this wall and then melt you as soon as you step close. It's doubly bad that you choose to go so close around this corner anyway, because this should get you killed. It really should get you killed. He knows you're there, you know he's there. You back off to begin with, you use a grenade to cover yourself, but then you go in anyway, and it doesn't really matter because your teammate's able to kill him. But that's an unaugmented grenade. The second perk that he's running is Teleport Homer. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. We'll come to that later on, why I don't like that either particularly. But this guy kills you. If your teammate doesn't kill him, if he's ready waiting by this corner, most of the time he'll be standing here and you'll just die. So there's no real way to play around that with this particular loadout unless you spam projectiles at every single corner and use the explosive damage to corner check. But if you have a melter gun, well, it's not really a problem because you can take the corner wide and finish them off, or you just have at least some measure of protection against that. Anyway, moving on. They're taking a C point, I should say. I must admit, I'm not super familiar with the Plasma Gun. I don't have many hours on it. But I think it's fair to say that this is a fairly difficult shot. The plasma projectile is relatively fast, but it also has a bit of a janky hitbox, so it makes it difficult to thread the needle here. I would say you would need to aim above this level here to actually land that hit, because any lower and you're going to get caught on this ridge. It's just another thing that makes the plasma gun not particularly great. And we'll talk a bit more about the plasma gun and the Vengeance Launcher as weapons later on when we start to evaluate the loadout, and I'm going to be straight up. I'm going to make some suggestions as to how you can improve the loadout, because this player specifically asked me how he can improve his game. He's reached something of a plateau. He's not really sure what he's doing wrong, and I think a big part of this is the loadout. It's just not doing you any favors whatsoever. But this plasma shot does end up missing. Now, if we watch that back, he fires it and it is actually aimed above the level, but because of the drop of the plasma gun and because of the way that ramps work with plasma charge shots and other projectiles, it's not going to hit. Firing some smaller shots, right decision to switch to bolt pistol. Good to see that you have a fairly clean fast swap there, that's good. Then you're going to stay in cab. You're watching down here, but you don't really need to do that because you can see anyone coming here. This area is not entirely see-through. I'd say it's translucent, but you can see if anyone moves through there, you'll know. So you don't necessarily need to watch this corner, which it looks like you're doing here. And if they come to here, by the time you spot them, you have time to charge up a shot and be ready to go. Instead, I mean, admittedly, it's good that you're staying out of line of sight of people shooting from the far side. You're moving down here again. Once again, if there's someone here, you're dead, but there isn't someone there, so that's not the end of the world. Now, I'm not quite sure why you're spending so much time here. I think it perhaps is the nature of the loadout. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to talk about it now. The play style that this loadout demands is extremely defensive. Now, that applies to the plasma gun in general, not so much the Vengeance Launcher, but the plasma gun is a defensive weapon because the basically all the utility of it is in that charge shot. And you're not playing with the perk, so that makes it very, very difficult to straight up win a shootout with it. So if we tab into the game real quick, the difficulty is if someone starts shooting, you have all that delay until you can actually properly engage, which demands you to play passively. Holding corners like this, if someone walks up, this is basically the average distance. You can land the shot on myself. Okay, I told you I don't really use this weapon, but in theory you want to be just peeking out, firing the shot, and finishing with the bolt pistol I'd recommend. So you know that, you're using the Vengeance Launcher to finish. Okay, I don't agree with it, but that's what you're trying to do. But that makes it so difficult to push in, because if you want to push around this corner, and there's someone right here, you're dead. If you want to push around this corner, and there's someone lurking here, maybe you can get away with it here if you take the corner really wide, but it's so risky. But the reason why this isn't a particularly good thing in this particular scenario is that your team is suffering. Your team is really struggling. Throughout the course of the match. It's not bad at the moment, you are holding 2 and 2, but with this loadout it's just not really viable to attack with. If you were to hold 2 and 2 and you were ahead on points, not a terrible idea. I don't really like pushing across the bridge on this map at all. We'll come on to some flank routes that you can play on a bit later, but it's just not a good option to attack over the bridge here. You need to be defending and you need to be ambushing with this, and you can't really do either of those very effectively from this position. I think your hope is that he's going to walk out here. If he walks out there, he's kind of stupid. He might do it anyway. He is feeding. I don't know what he's doing, but he got away with it because it's just not got enough burst damage. This looks like it's a full-on charge shot hit, to be honest. I'm not quite sure why his armor doesn't get broken, but even so, it is a Devastator. It's not going to kill him. Now, I have to compare it to the Stalker Bolter. The Stalker Bolter is my preferred weapon, obviously. From this position here, he's running in a straight line across here, he's dead. You can very, very easily land some headshots and just wipe him out like that. This is such a clunky way of doing it. Like I say, even if you do everything perfectly, if you hit him with the charge shot preemptively even, you would then have to land 2 VL charges to kill him. That's not going to happen. As it happens, I guess it's lag? I have noticed that the plasma gun charge shots are a bit susceptible to lag. But you're basically back to square one. You can't really push into this Stalker Bolter, although he's injured, so yeah, this is your chance. I don't know, is he still there? He's going to kill you if he's still behind this corner. I can only assume he moved. Yeah, this is the trouble. With this loadout, you're so rooted into waiting for targets to come to you. The way is completely clear. If you're playing with different weapons, I suppose, you just want to be getting over here. You really want to be getting on this point while it's unoccupied. But I don't know. You want to take the position and hold it with this loadout, and you're just not really doing that. Okay, starting to move up now. It's taken a while, but you are starting to move up. And here comes the next big problem for the loadout. It doesn't really matter in this case. You weren't able to kill him, but he wasn't able to kill you. There are better examples later on. That's not a bad shot, actually. It's not really effective range for the plasma gun. Most people will see it coming, and again, with the long projectile flight time of the Vengeance launcher, you're not going to be able to kill him. Here's another thing. Why are you doing this? You're switching twice. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You don't need to do that. You only need to go from a weapon, then back to the weapon, as is probably the best way of doing it, so you end up with the weapon that you want. I don't know why you're doing it twice, but it makes things janky. And slows you down a little bit as well, I would imagine. Okay, you don't need this many people on your home point. I don't know why everyone's here. Well, I do know why everyone's here, because everyone's scared. But you don't need to be hanging back that far, really. So, okay, moving down to sea approach, but this is another problem. It's so hard to attack this. Okay, this isn't actually a bad position to be shooting plasma, because you can splash it off this back wall. But at the same time, if there's someone here, and they're standing far back on that ramp, you'll never hit them. You'll never hit them with a charge shot. In this scenario, you splash it off the back wall and still done no damage. And the assault's coming for you. That's actually a nice shot. What happens there? That's kind of weird. It looks like you get scammed out of this charge shot as he comes in. You definitely do hit him, but his armor doesn't break. Yeah, like I say, that's another thing with the plasma gun. It's just not that reliable. Even if you do play perfectly with your charge shots, even if you do land them full on, sometimes the game just says no. No, you didn't hit them. It's just not a good weapon. It's not a good weapon. Anyway, moving on. The assault comes in. I don't mind the decision to charge. You don't really have much alternative with this loadout. If you had a melter gun, you just kill him. But you don't, so never mind. I don't know why you're not pushing forwards. Okay, let's talk now a little bit about the routes you want to be taking on Basilica. So, spawn point's here, home point, then across the bridge. So, like I say, I'm perfectly fine with you taking this route all the way to C. So once C is capped, then it becomes the question of what do you do? Now, this isn't the easiest map to flank on, I'll be perfectly honest with you. If you move across the bridge, you're going to get to about here and then get stuck. A big part of this map, though, is bridge control. These two are by far the most valuable points. Neither of these are particularly good for holding if you don't hold them and if it's not your home point. So you want to be trying to make sure that you secure these. Now, walking across the bridge this way, usually suicide on tactical, because there are going to be people around here, they're going to be hanging out here. You can't effectively engage them, they can just shoot you down. But at the same time, if you approach from underneath, we'll use a different color for the underneath. If you approach down here, this is essentially even more defensible, because people can just hang out over here. So what's a better alternative? Well, I know I've said that it's not a great point to hold, but these two home points are actually really good to decap. You can either go over the bridge or you can go through here, access this point here, and it's actually relatively easy to do that because people will come from here, but you can shoot them from this angle. You can start taking shots down here, and actually just drawing people away from the action to B is actually quite a high value play. Now, another good thing that you can do from this position is wrap all the way around. This is semi-risky, I would say. You can go all the way around and then attack D from here. This is a much safer approach. So a route that I like to take, if there's a particular deadlock, say A and C are held by my team, B and D are held by the other team, this is the route I will usually take. I'll go underneath all the way to B, excuse me. Then, once that's decapped, or if I get forced off, I'll drop down, then take this flank route over to D. It's risky, you can be shot from here, but this is so much more effective, and it will put some real pressure on the other team, and it will drag them back to their spawn, and hopefully give your assault marines a bit of chance to actually move across the bridge and get some work done. So that's my advice for how to play this map fundamentally as a tactical. There are other options. A lot of it is opportunistic. If you see that there's nobody here, go across the bridge. If you know that there is nobody down here, say you reach this point here and you see it, attack from there. If you know that there's nobody here, you can attack from underneath. It's just riskier. So just an idea of what you might want to be doing, but loitering around here, bad idea. You're not getting much value. If you're lurking underneath, you're not getting much value because you're only holding one point at a time. Now, this all changes if you're holding both C and D. Once a team has control of all of the bridge, the game is basically over. There's no real easy way to take it back. If you've got Devastators positioned along here, or maybe Tacticals with Stalker Bolters, the game is just done, honestly, because they can cover so many of the approaches. It's very difficult to attack these from underneath. It's very difficult to actually take them from Assault Marines on the bridge. But anyway, that's not really what's happening here. That's just a little side note for what happens in the game usually, because if we shade in the entire portion of the map that's controlled by this bridge, you control all of the home point, essentially. You control all of these approaches from the bridge. You control all of this approach. You control all of here. The only areas that really aren't controlled are the enemy's home point and their spawn. And that's just a really sucky position to be in if you're the team that doesn't hold anything. But like I say, that's not what's happened here. It might happen later on to you, but it's not going to happen the other way. So you've got an assault up there. This is a better decision. I prefer using the Vengeance Launcher against assaults. Now the main reason for that is because they don't get the benefit of impenetrable. Some missed shots there actually. Let's see if that was lag or just missing. I think you're detonating those a little bit late. That one's definitely detonating too early. Okay, so it's basically the timing. Your aim of these isn't bad, you're just timing it wrong. Okay, there's a melter gun coming. Right decision, you don't want to engage that. Good. Ah, if only you had a melter gun. See, this is the trouble against assault. They're not going to stand still long enough for you to get a charge shot from the plasma gun, and they're not really going to stand still long enough for you to hit them with a Vengeance Launcher, especially in this sort of scenario up close. Long range, different story. The Vengeance Launcher is actually excellent at dealing with assaults at mid to range. Not really at long range, not really up close, but it's very, very good at mid range, so that's where you should want to keep them. The assault does seem to get away. You're backing off. I think you're maybe looking for this tactical. I'm not sure how that doesn't kill him. This needs to be a kill. Essentially, this is the perfect scenario for this loadout. This is where I would actually say that it does the job better than Stalker Melter, for example, because you've landed the charge shot. He's down to 50 health. He goes behind cover, and you can finish with the Vengeance Launcher. That doesn't happen here, though. I don't know why. I guess it's just too slow still, honestly. Let's look at that again. Charge shot, yeah, it's a slow swap. If you fast swap this, he's dead. Just something to work on. The Vengeance Launcher actually really sucks for fast swapping. If we tab into the game, I'll give an example. So, you see that little reload animation. That can really stuff you up. It also, yeah, it actually is, it's really awkward. But notice how there's a delay. If you swap too fast, look at that. You have to press R, and then he'll reload. Now this can be really, really annoying. So you take a shot, you switch back, you can't shoot. It sucks. It's just not good for fast swapping. Until you detonated this charge, it will not let you shoot. This delay will get you killed if you're not aware of it. Sorry, got a bit of a frog in my throat today. So, in essence, you need to make sure that your Marine reloads his Vengeance Launcher before you fast swap if you anticipate switching back to it later on. Just something to be aware of. The Vengeance Launcher just isn't great for animation cancels. Like, even if you then... You can't really react quickly. So say you then have to switch, and then you're left with that problem again. You can't shoot and then scoot straight away. It just doesn't work. And pressing shift, nothing happens. It's just not great. It's not great if you want to be using fast animation cancels. It's much better as a sort of slower frontline artillery support, I should say. But like I say, we'll come to that later on when I start to recommend changes to the loadout to make it work a bit better. It's just clunky when it comes to fast swapping is what I'm trying to say. Okay, that's a good hit. That's a good kill, actually. You are flanked though. Okay, this is actually essentially optimum conditions. This is what I mentioned before, but this is done better. This is good. You land the charge shot. It's a difficult shot to land, and then the Vengeance Launcher charge finishes off him in cover. But like I say, if we tab back into the game, I think you get screwed over by the reload animation. Because there's just that bit of delay when it comes to charging and also with rolling. You may have been able to actually react a little bit faster if it wasn't with the Vengeance Launcher. Because if you look, you fire the shot, and you're stuck in the reload animation while he's shooting you and you're not able to evade. It was a little bit of a slow reaction, I will say anyway. You kept firing while you were taking damage, but all the same, the animation delay wasn't doing you any favors whatsoever. Well, this isn't great. You're Home point has been decapped. Assault. I know you did mention that your hit scan aim isn't the best, so this is probably why you defaulted to this sort of loadout. And actually, you know, I can understand that. Not everyone has a background in FPS games, and the Vengeance Launcher is actually really good for this. If your aim hit scan isn't the best, but your projectile aim is good, Vengeance Launcher is a very solid choice. Again, they're playing very defensively. You're not really achieving anything in this game. I'm going to go out and say that you've got basically 0 value for your team so far. Here's something that's interesting as well. You're cancelling the charge up rather than holding it. You can see there are targets here. I assume you're predicting that they're going to run out. It's only here that you actually hold the charge. Now, one thing that you probably are aware of, but I would like to see you use more, is charging up and cancelling. So you see from this position here, if you see them coming, you can hold the charge shot, and you have this long, and then if you press R, you can cancel it. It's dead simple. So if you think someone's going to come out, charge it up, hold the charge shot, and then cancel it if they don't come out. Just do it by pressing R. It's dead easy. Instead, by doing this, you're setting yourself all the way back and removing that ability to react. So you actually, by the time you started to finish that charge shot, he was already too far forwards for you to properly react to. So charge the shot up, hold it, if someone comes, fire, and then you can fast switch or whatever. But what you don't want to be doing particularly is feigning charges and just not getting it in time when it's necessary. See, again, you're just too late with this. He's still coming. Again, you see that delay. I presume that you were reacting quickly to that. But if we watch it slowly, if we watch it back in 0.25, that might be too slow. So you fire the first shot, the grenade comes in. You fire the second, and it's only when he's finished that reload animation that you're able to roll. That's a mastercrafted grenade, and that almost got you killed. Just something to be aware of. Again, you're doing it the same. That's a good shot. Ah, but you see, you see the delay. This is why it's just not a good fast swap option, because you fired a shot and it didn't finish the reload. So by the time it's done that, it needs to reload. If you watch it back slowly again, I'll just do that very quickly. He's doing the reload animation when you want to shoot. It's a scam. Apologies for that horrible sound. You can't even fire straight away because he's still reloading the damn thing. The Vengeance Launcher does not work as a fast swapper. It really doesn't. Anyway, moving on. I feel like you could have hit that shot. That's definitely a shot that you needed to hit. If you're going to specialize this heavily in this loadout, you need to be hitting this. You're firing behind him, unfortunately. He's running to the side. He does roll, I guess, but you need to predict that movement. And again, you're stuck essentially stranded on the bridge. That's a good shot. No, don't like that decision. That was close, actually. Okay, let's talk about a better option here. So, I presume that you've correctly surmised that you're not going to have time to finish the Assault Marine with a Vengeance Launcher, so you go for the charge. But this is where you want to be switching to Bolt Pistol, or you can just use a Plasma Gun. The Bolt Pistol is the better option, so I'd recommend fast swapping. He's hit. Then you charge. You start to charge. He flies up, but you're already locked into the charge animation, which you didn't cancel either. You need to be cancelling these charges, especially if you miss a charge. You can't afford this sort of downtime. If I tab into the game, I'll show you what I mean. So you fire the shot here. I'm not going to fire because I'm running low on ammo. Then you go for the charge, and then you just sort of let it happen. But you see, you can cancel the charge at any point with the weapon swap. So from here, you can just turn, cancel, then turn and engage with something else, for example. It's just so much more efficient than having to wait for that animation to play out. Moving on. Rolled onto the grenade. Happens. You got away with it though. Okay, here's a kill for you. Why did it take you so long? Why did you delay? I'm curious. Was it the reload animation again I wanted? Yeah, it was. It was the reload animation, and by that time Sol was in your way. This is the trouble with the Vengeance Launcher when it comes to fast swapping. It just doesn't work half the time, and you're dead to the assault. Now, this is a big thing about running without a melter gun. You're practically helpless when an assault gets this close. You go for the melee combo, but honestly, the melee combo is not reliable. Even if you do land it fully, there's a decent chance that at this stage you'll still die. But whereas with the melter gun, just shoot him once, and then knife him or whatever else, and he's dead. Either that or he is on 3% and force back. You are completely defenseless up close. If the assault knows what he's doing, he's not going to get himself stun locked by the tactical's melee combo. So this is just an all-round horrible situation. And there's no real thing that you do wrong here. You go for the stun, but he slashes past that and you're just dead. This is a fault with the loadout, not necessarily with you. It happens. Sometimes the melee is janky. It just doesn't work. It doesn't stun. You're just going back to the same place each time, though. I would like to see you get creative and go down here. This isn't working over here. You're not getting any value, really. Going underneath again. I don't know why you're going here. You've got so many teammates around here. You have to trust them sometimes. I mean, maybe trust is the wrong word. You have to assume that you're free to do something else. Okay. Charge shot lands a little bit short. He's still there, though. Oh, the assault's back. Yeah, you're not going to survive that. Okay, talking about this, right decision to roll in this direction. I don't actually know where he came from. Was there any hint of him coming? No, that's a good ambush on his part. The panic nade, essentially. That's not going to hit, though, because you threw it behind him. You got to throw these at your feet. You have to just accept the fact that you're dead at this stage. You're half health. You need to trade if you can. The grenade goes here. It has to go at your feet because he's slashing, and he'll run into that and die. He'll slash into that. You'll probably die either to him or the grenade. In fact, you will if you do that. But at least you can trade. And that's really all you can hope to do with this loadout up close. Because, especially against laggy assault marines, there are certain assaults who will always hit you with the ground pound. There are certain assaults who will hit you with a power sword no matter where you go. You need a melter to defend against that. I can't stress it enough. You do die in this scenario, and he does get away. You really need to make a play. If you want to have any hope of winning this map, you need to make a play. And making a play is not hanging around defensively. Again, you're getting stuck on those grenades because of the reload animation with the Vengeance Launcher. Something to be aware of. It's not your fault, it's just a quirk of the weapon. But there are two assaults here, and I don't necessarily like that you just walked at them, because if they come into ground pound range or melee range, you just die. There's two of them. You can't fight both. I'm actually surprised that didn't kill you. You got away with it, though. And I actually really like this. This is good. Right choice. You want to be moving towards him when he's looking to ground pound you, and you're low on health especially. Going away is not the right idea. In this scenario, I guess you get away with it. But from here, good choice going this way. That saves your life, albeit temporarily. This is a tough lobby, though, to be fair. I'm not going to be too harsh on you. I just think that you're playing too passively overall. You need to be playmaking, on tactical especially. If you're going to play this defensively, you might as well just play Devastator with a plasma gun. Plasma cannon. This is actually nice shooting. Let's watch that again. Smooth tracking. You hit all 5 shots in a row, and he just gets deleted. I like that. Maybe there's an argument for using the Vengeance Launcher, but in this scenario it does work out just fine. Again, you're attacking from not a great position. You do actually break his arm with that. Okay, pushing in, I like that. He's stimmed though. That was close, okay. Ballsy, honestly. He's stimmed. You know he's got Larimer's Blessing, because who doesn't if they're using stims on tack? It's really risky to engage in this. You're just essentially hoping that your screen shake is enough to throw his aim off, because he can and will kill you. It's going to take at least a couple of Vengeance Launcher charges to kill him, and he's perfectly capable of killing you here. Doesn't matter though, you land them pretty much bang on, and he goes down, but not without almost killing you. And you killed him so hard he left the game. What an absolute monster of a play. Mentally boomed, shall we say. But anyway, the game is over, unfortunately, and that's about that. Yeah, he's playing a different game now. That's the moral victory, if ever there was one. 4 deaths in a game that's this one-sided, and only 4 kills, is far too passive. Like I've said, you need to be flanking, you need to be taking alternative routes. It's just not going to work if you guard your safe point, and then it still is lost. I don't know. But let's talk about loadouts real quick. Now, we've already established that this just doesn't really work. And also another thing I want to draw attention to is that not one person in the entire game spawned on your teleport homer. Nobody used it. Now the reason for that is because you weren't in any positions that people would want to spawn in. You were basically standing in the back line. For most of the game, you're standing round about here, or round about here. I personally don't think you should be running with a teleport homer anyway. That's only really for coordinated team play. But if you choose to, you need to be somewhere that people will want to spawn. Now, if we push up and play on their home point, for example, people will want to spawn on you there. That's actually relatively high value. You certainly can do that, and it could potentially lead to good results. Or if you just stay in support of your team in this sort of area, again, high value position to be in with a telehomer. But I just don't like it anyway. In this game, I've learned that you can never really trust your teammates to not ruin things, and if you're flanking and infiltrating behind enemy lines and people spawn on you and just run in, they're going to give away your position, they're going to get you killed. But without further ado, let's talk a bit about alternative weapons. Now, we've already established that you need a melter gun, so let's switch to a loadout that has a melter gun. I think you've got two options. You can choose between Vengeance Launcher or Plasma Gun, as long as you have a melter. Now, I am a big proponent of the Improved Melter Charge perk. I don't actually play with the Improved Melter Charge perk, but that's because I play with Larimer's Blessing, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend that unless you're really, really comfortable with your animation cancels and all that sort of thing. Let's have a look at the first one. Melter gun, plasma gun. It's worth noting that you should always have your melter in your first slot so that when you spawn on point you're ready to shoot it. Now the way that this loadout works is a little bit different. You can actually have the pushing power to engage around corners without committing suicide. You see, just even having it gives you some measure of defense and also against assaults. But once you're in position, say you get to behind enemy lines, you're reaching this sort of position here, the fundamental playstyle is still the same. You're charging up and you're finishing with the pistol instead of the Vengeance Launcher. Now, this is just so much more efficient, I would say. You're investing too much in that gimmick with the other loadout, whereas in this one, you're only really spending weapon versatility. All the other weapons work just great in their own right. And it's just a very good ambush weapon with the melter as well. You step out and you can finish the target off. And this is actually really good against Devastators. It might actually be better against Devastators with Iron Halo than if you're using the Stalker Bolter, simply because the Plasma Gun absolutely tears through armor. I personally hate this weapon, but if you really have your heart set on using it, this I would say is the way to do it. You have a couple of options. You can swap out your Improved Melter Charge if you really, really want to play with the Teleport Homer. That's the perk to switch out. Alternatively, you can take Mastercrafted War Gear and then make your grenades into something genuinely scary. But this is the combo that I would prefer personally. Let's move on to the other one. I'll just kill myself real quick. And we will pull out the Vengeance Launcher variant of it. This is somewhat retro. There are a lot of very, very good players who used to play this a lot of the time. You've probably not heard of Lucky Bastard, but he was essentially the best tactical in the game, hands down, for quite a long time. And this was his loadout. Very, very efficient at being a frontline damage dealer. You see, with this, you can actually push across the bridge if you're opting into using the Vengeance Launcher, because you're able to engage assaults. If you're basically standing on the bridge with this isn't really an effective range, but you have control over both of those points quite effectively, and if assaults want to contest you, you have the Melter and the Vengeance Launcher. This is essentially the ultimate anti-assault loadout. Now, once again, you have options for switching out your Improved Melter perk. Mastercrafted War Gear is something that I would actually highly recommend with this. It's just such a strong combo to be able to throw down an aid onto a target that's particularly heavily armoured and just spam them with the Vengeance Launcher until they don't exist anymore. Now, of course, as I've mentioned, this isn't particularly great for fast swapping. As we've already been over, there are all sorts of janky animations with the Vengeance Launcher that just really screw you up and ruin your day if you're trying to do some technical stuff. So be aware of that. If you really want to opt into using the Vengeance Launcher, know its limitations and know what you can and can't do quicker, well, I suppose more slowly than other weapons would be able to. Now, the playstyle for this one is actually not too bad when it comes to teleport homers, because a lot of the time you'll be wanting to play on the front lines, and the front lines are actually a fairly valuable place to have a teleport homer. So let's say you're attacking D point here and you're firing from here, covering your team. This is actually a high value tele spot, because then people will want to spawn on you, you can get in there, they can get in there, do some damage. But as I've mentioned on Basilica, this is actually a pretty good place to hold if you already have bridge control. If you've got these 2 points, this is an absolute kill zone. The weapon that you play doesn't really matter. It's just a very, very strong place. Now, I guess before we finish, I'll just talk you through some of the flanking routes that I mentioned. So once you cap C, you can relatively safely get to about here, but then from this point onwards, if you push across the bridge, you're probably going to die. So this route is the one that I would take. Alternatively, you can go underneath, that works too. Get on the enemy's home point, mark them around. If you can, decap it. If you can't, drop down over here. You can quite easily escape into these tunnels. That's a pretty valid option. Alternatively, as I quite like to do, you can wrap around here, but be aware that there are going to be people coming from the left side, especially if you kill some, they'll be coming out of spawn. So you need to be very quick here. You can't afford to hang around. But if you can get to here, this is an extremely strong position. You can put pressure on people here, you can kill them outright, and people will often not expect you to come from their own side of the map. So you can clear out people on the point, you can clear out people holding this angle. It's just a much better idea than just staying around in these areas because, as I've mentioned ad infinitum, far too passive. You're not doing anything here. Really not affecting the game in the slightest bit. Now, if we look at your team, oh god, that's a lot of passive players. Syrian is probably the most aggressive. The rest you can't really depend on. Maybe one who as well is going to be attacking, but everyone else on the team, not so much. They're just going to be hanging around, safer positions, so you really need to be the one to take the initiative and go ahead and get some kills and get some point pressure on the others. On the other team, I should say. I feel like that's been quite a critical episode, honestly. Honestly, your mechanics for the weapons that you're using aren't bad. I just think that you're using the wrong weapons. That's the fundamental takeaway from here. If you take anything away, switch up the loadout. It's just not working, if you ask me. And I think that's a big part of why you say you're not improving. That's simply because you're so limited by the options that you have with this loadout. You just cannot afford to play aggressively. You're not really playing the loadout particularly wrong either. It's just not built to do what tactical does best. So think about switching it out. Definitely integrate Melter into your playstyle and your loadouts. And I guess just see how it goes from there. You're already familiar with all the animation cancels you really need. Just make use of them, I guess. Make use of them and be aggressive. Anyway, that should wrap up everything we need to talk about here. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I will see you on the battlefield.